Biden's picked to lead the Federal Aviation Administration. Philip Washington has confirmation vote has now been delayed. Washington has no aviation experience and would be heading the FAA, which, you know, you'd think that would be a prerequisite for this position. It was, and it certainly was during the Trump administration. Here is Senator Ted Cruz this week calling out this nomination for exactly what it is.
I'm deeply disappointed that the Biden White House decided to treat a critical safety position as a political spoil system. And as a result of the Biden White House playing politics with this critically important position, the FAA has lacked a Senate-confirmed leader for a year now.
All right, Senator Cruz joins us now from Capitol Hill. Sir, good to see you. We're going to get to that here in just a minute, but first, all of Newsmax would like to thank you for your support while we were off DirecTV. As you know, we are fully back on DirecTV, and Uverse today. You played a very big role in making that happen, and we want to give you our thanks. Our viewers can go to Newsmax.com, read more about the agreement that we made. But just want to get your thoughts as we finally had this finally got figured out.
Yeah, well, I think this week was a big victory for free speech. So congratulations to Newsmax. Congratulations to the viewers of Newsmax. DirecTV was wrong to deplatform Newsmax. And there are 30 million Texans who want to have choices when you watch cable news. There are a ton of choices that are left of center. There are only a handful of choices that are right of center. And I'm a big fan of Newsmax. I think you guys do a terrific job. And I am the ranking member on the Senate Commerce Committee, which has jurisdiction over about half of the U.S. economy, including all of telecom and all of broadcast and all of big tech. And in that role, I launched an investigation of DirecTV's decision to deplatform Newsmax. And I made very clear to DirecTV that this investigation would keep going until the only acceptable outcome was allowing Newsmax back on air. And today, y'all are back on air. That's a great victory for Texas, for America, for free speech. It's good sometimes when the good guys win.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, it was critically important, and we do thank you. Let's talk some news today. Biden's pick to lead the FAA has no aviation experience whatsoever. He was never a military pilot, no commercial pilot experience, never even worked at an airline. There's a lot of concern about, I think, traveling in general right now. People are very worried about how pilots are being chosen, whether or not those are, you know, diversity hires in some way. Are they the right people? Are they experienced enough to fly the planes? Now we see this with the FAA. It's very concerning.
Yeah, listen, the administrator of the FAA is an incredibly important position. It's a difficult position. By statute, it's required that someone have expertise in aviation, of course. Unfortunately, Joe Biden has nominated Phil Washington. Phil's someone who spent 24 years in the military, perfectly fine guy, nice guy, except for the fact that he has zero aviation experience. He's not a pilot. He's never flown a plane. He wasn't a military pilot. He wasn't a commercial airline pilot. He's never worked at an airline. He's never worked as an air traffic controller. He's never worked at a company that manufactures airplanes. He's never worked at a company that repairs airplanes. At his hearing, he couldn't answer basic questions about aviation safety. I asked him about the two horrific crashes that happened a couple of years ago with the 737 MAX. I asked him what caused those crashes. He said he didn't know. You know, the sad thing is, Rob, I said, I believe you. You don't know. But that means you're not qualified to run the agency that is in charge of keeping us safe. You and I both get on airplanes. We put our families on airplanes. We want someone who's a nonpartisan. Look, I don't want a Republican running the FAA. I don't want a Democrat running the FAA. I want an expert who knows how to keep planes safe running the FAA. The good news is we had a markup scheduled this week. The Democrats were trying to ram this nomination through, and at the last minute, they pulled it down because they don't have the votes. And I think this nomination will end up being withdrawn, and I think ultimately the Biden White House will be forced to do the right thing, which is nominate someone who is qualified and has the expertise to try to keep the flying public safe.
Right, and it's it's not fair to Phil Washington either. I mean, he shouldn't have been nominated in the first place to be put in a position where he has to answer questions he can't. He's probably a fantastic manager. He could run a great business to some capacity. He shouldn't be in line for the FAA.
Right.
They're playing virtue signaling politics and just humiliating themselves and the candidates that they put up. I want to flip to what's happening here in New York with former President Trump. The grand jury hears from Robert Costello on Monday. And ever since then, Alvin Bragg has been panicked, trying to figure out what he's going to do next. He cancels the grand jury for the rest of the week. We're not going to hear from him again until maybe next Monday. Your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, I think this potential indictment is an absolute outrage. It is baseless. It is utterly frivolous. And I think we should be grateful that Alvin Bragg has backed away. I think Bragg may be getting cold feet. As you know, every week I do a podcast. It's called Verdict with Ted Cruz. Monday's podcast was a deep dive for an hour, walking through the law and the facts to demonstrate why this indictment is so utterly baseless, why there's no statutory grounds for it, why it is prosecutorial misconduct and a partisan witch hunt. Yesterday's podcast that I put out entitled 3 Big Victories talks about what happened, which is once this became public, a bunch of Democrats got really nervous that Alvin Bragg, this left-wing, Soros-supported DA, ironically, if he brought this bogus case and lost in court, which would be the inevitable outcome, Alvin Bragg could end up playing a pivotal role in re-electing Donald Trump as president. I think Democrats are scared out of their mind, and they're telling Bragg to back off, and the fact that he sent the grand jury home is a big victory. I think there's a very real possibility he says never mind and runs away.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this thing just collapsed, and then I think they're just waiting to let it cool down before they just tell everybody, yeah, that this is over. And we'll see if that's true or not next week, I suspect. Senator Cruz, we appreciate your time, and thank you again for your help. Good to see you, sir.